me, please, to get it, Shel Yaakov, the Epistle of James. The Epistle of St. James, chapter 1, verse 1. James, a bondservant of the Lord Yeshua HaMashiach, to the 12 tribes who are dispersed abroad, greetings. Now there may be some intended spiritual meaning in that, but as a genre, epistles don't use typology or figurative meaning without assuming the believers understand what it means. We know that Anna was from the tribe of Asher in the book of Luke. Most Christians have the wrong idea that the 10 northern tribes, all but Benjamin, Judah, and the Levites, went into captivity. That's wrong. The faithful people in Israel came south to Judah. Faithful people will always leave unfaithful churches before the judgment of God comes on them. And they kept their identities all the way to the Second Temple period into the early church, the time of Jesus. In this country, there's an era that dates back at least to the last century called Anglo-Israelism. Now, my grandparents were from here, the north of England, except one grandmother was from Glasgow. And I saw some people who were into British Israelism in Speaker's Corner. And they had all this stuff, British, Brit Ish in Hebrew, a covenant with man. And the Lion of Judah is the Lion of Scotland. And the Aran Islands is named after Aaron. They had it all worked out. And when they found out my little daughter, Batmiel, was from Israel and her family were from Scotland and England, they thought she stepped out of a flying saucer. This stuff has absolutely no biblical or anthropological basis whatsoever. It's ridiculous. None. The Celtic peoples anthropologically are not one nation, but many, aren't they? There are groups of different kinds, like the Cornish ones, the Scottish ones, the Welsh ones, the Irish ones. Now they have certain things in common, but then the other inhabitants of the British Isles are Anglo-Saxons, the Germanic people. Then comes the Normans, Vikings who came to France and then to England. You've got several strata of people who've invaded Great Britain and were integrated into the British identity over a period of many centuries. British are not one pure stock as such, never have been. How do they get this stuff? There's no Semitic features. Just go to the people who still have Semitic features. Yemenite Jews, Sephardic Jews, Arabs, pureblood Bedouins. Do they look like people from England? No, they don't. It's all ridiculous. It's almost as ridiculous anthropologically as it is theologically. The 12 tribes are the basis. Revelation 4, John sees the 24 elders, which seem to be the 12 apostles and the 12 sons of Jacob. Now, if you were to go to the Domitian Abbey in Jerusalem, Roman Catholic place, you'll see 3 concentric circles cut up like a pie into 12 sections. The innermost section has the name of the 12 sons of Jacob, the 12 patriarchs of Israel, one for each tribe. The second circle, corresponding to the 12 sons of Jacob, they have the names of the 12 apostles. Guess what is in the outermost circle? The zodiac. Turn with me, please, to Revelation chapter 7. I get letters from people who think I've got it all figured out. Believe me, I don't have it all figured out. I may know what other people say about chapters like this. I do. I know what the prevailing opinions. But I'm not going to teach something unless I know the Holy Spirit has shown me for sure that's what it means. What about the 144,000, they say? How will God know which tribes? Do you think it's literal Jews? Now obviously the sealing of this 144,000 replays the story of Ezekiel going into the city and anointing those who were anointed of the Lord before the judgment came. Revelation 7:4, and I heard the number of those who were sealed, 144,000 from every tribe of the sons of Israel. From the tribe of Yehuda, Judah, 12,000 were sealed. From the tribe of Reuben, 12,000. From the tribe of Gad, 12,000. From the tribe of Asher, 12,000. From the tribe of Naphtali, 12,000. From the tribe of Manasseh, 12,000. From the tribe of Simeon, 12,000. From the tribe of Levi, 12,000. From the tribe of Issachar, 12,000. From the tribe of Zebulun, 12,000. From the tribe of Joseph, 12,000. And from the tribe of Benjamin, 12,000 were sealed. Now let's look at Revelation 14. And I looked, and behold, the Lamb was standing on Mount Zion, and with him 144,000, having his name, and the name of his Father written on their heads. And they sang a new song before the throne. And no one could learn the song except the 144,000. I'm not going to try to figure out all what this is, because I don't know. I can tell you what other people say about it. But I'll tell you this. The first step to figuring it out is not Revelation 7. It's not Revelation 14. It's the final prophecy of Jacob in Genesis 49. You can't even be positive. In fact, there's good reason to believe, as Watchman Nee said, that these two groups of 144,000 are not even the same. One group seems to be in heaven, the other seems to be on earth. The description of one group is not the same as the other. One would seem to be physical Jews, the other doesn't necessarily mean it. Anthropologically, who knows? Arnold Fruchtenbaum is right. The main thing is Brit Milah, the sign of the covenant in giving Jewish identity. Jews assimilated and intermarried for centuries. The whole Khazar Empire converted to Judaism. Ashkenazi Jewry, Arthur Kessler and other people agree with him, came from the Khazar Empire converting. Massive conversions to Judaism in Morocco. The whole Yemenite Empire converted. You know the way that when Constantine ostensibly converted, or Clovis and Clotilda ostensibly converted to Christendom, that their kingdoms followed? The same thing happened in the Jewish world. You'd be pretty hard-pressed anthropologically to make a case. Jewish identity has to do with covenants. This stuff of sons of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, yes, but how does it define sons? Some of those 12 tribes were sons born of servants. You can't even genetically trace the direct line in that sense. It has to do with covenant. How do you determine what tribe somebody's from? My wife's family name is Segal. The Kohanim, the assistants to the Levites, they were a priestly family. People's names like Levine, Cohen, maybe you can speculate. But I have relatives named Cohen, but who knows? I don't know. And I'm very skeptical of people who say they have it all figured out. What I know is that in order to figure it out, it doesn't begin with Revelation, it begins with Jacob. Now remember, Jacob, we looked at what he meant personally, now we're going to look at what he means for Israel and the Jews as a nation. Normally in these seminars, we have two big, long messages and then a short one at the end. Today it's opposite. The short one will be this one and the main one will be at the end today. So we can have part 1 and 2 together. Jacob was again always somebody trying to attain the blessings and purposes of God according to his natural reason and ability. What have the Jewish people done? Tried to attain the blessings and purposes of God according to their natural thinking. Rabbinic Judaism, founded in Yavne by Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, is not the Judaism of Torah, it is another Judaism. It is a product of the natural mind of rabbis, developed through the centuries after Rabbi Akiva and the Gaonim and Rashi and so on. Ultimately redefined as an Aristotelian religion by Rambam. Then more on top of that. Jews know they're different from other people, but they don't know why. It's amazing. I watched Allen Ginsberg, the Jewish poet from America, from the Beat generation, the Beatnik era, on television. I used to see him around New York. He was on TV and over here a few weeks ago, and the guy would tell you his religion is Buddhist. Well, I'm a Jewish Buddhist. You see Jewish people who don't believe in God, and they go to the Wailing Wall in Jerusalem and begin crying, and they don't even know why. They don't even know why. I haven't got a clue why. They know something, but they don't know what it is they know, and they don't even know why they know it. Think of unsaved Jewish people as a kind of backslider. They're unsaved people, but they're also a kind of backslider. The new covenant in Jeremiah 31:31 was not made with the church, it was made with the house of Judah and the house of Israel. They've broken that covenant. Jewish people are backslidden. They're a kind of backslider, in a way. When somebody's born again and they fall away from Jesus and go back to the world, their life can never be normal or the same. They never fit in. They always know something's wrong and it's eating away at their soul all the time. But they can know what it is. Jewish people have something eating away at their soul, but they don't know what it is. The rabbis think they know, except the rabbis disagree with each other as to what it is. Talking in Hebrew for a couple of hours to the president of the Bet Din, Orthodox rabbi, he's an MBE in Leeds. I witnessed him for 2 hours in Hebrew. Wonderful man, plenty of knowledge, but so little understanding. So little. Jacob would always try to scheme to attain the purpose, the blessing, the heritage by his devices. And it always blew up in his face. The Jews are the same way. No matter what the Jewish people try, it'll blow up in their face. There's only one place the Jews will ever be a secure people. It is not in the land of Israel. The Jews were never secure in the land of Israel. It's a strategically vulnerable place. The biggest Jewish disaster before the Holocaust was undoubtedly the events of 70 AD and also Bar Kokhba's rebellion in the 2nd century. It was the equivalent of the Holocaust for that time. Proportionately, it was some kind of similar mass extermination. It happened in their own land. The only place the Jews will ever be secure is in the palm of their Messiah, Yeshua. So much for these organizations that say you can bless the Jews and bring them back to Israel as a way to see God bless them. No. The Jews are not going back to Israel for the blessing of God. There's only one way for God to bless the Jew, and it's the way He can bless anybody, through faith in their Messiah. Because the gospel is available to them first, the consequences for rejecting it are on them first, it says in Romans. Jeremiah 31:30 talks about Hatekofat Hatzorat Yaakov, the time of Jacob's trouble. The Jewish people are back in Israel for the time of Jacob's trouble. Now on the tapes, The Future History of the Church, we talk about how the figure or the metaphor of the night is a figure of the Great Tribulation. Jesus said, He's coming like a thief in the night. Watchman, watchman, how far is the night? Is He coming in the second watch of the night or the third? Asked the psalmist, I think. Work while you have the light, for night will come when no man can work. The wise virgins needed oil in the lamps to see in the night. When did Jacob get the blessing? At the end of the night. The Jews are wrestling with God, and they will wrestle to the end of the night. Now the Bible talks the difference between Jews and Jacob. Israel and Jacob. You see the prophets, Israel and Jacob, Israel and Jacob, Israel. Why does he call them both? Israel's been broken. Galatians talks about the Israel of God. Even Gentiles are spiritually grafted in by faith into that Israel in some sense. But Jacob is the Jewish people in their unbroken state. Their name has not been changed yet. The blessing is for Israel. The promise is for Jacob. God can't break His promises to the Jews. But they're never going to get it as long as they're still called Jacob. They'll get it when they're called Israel. When God looks at Israel, what does He say? Israel? No, He sees Jacob. When God looks at Jewish believers, He sees Israel. You understand? Let's look at Genesis chapter 49. Remember, Jacob personifies and typifies the Jewish people. His whole long life was, in a sense, a preparation for this one chapter. It was not Abraham who began Israel. It was not Isaac who began Israel. It was Jacob. The 12 tribes came from him. Jacob gives a prophecy in Genesis 49 for the Jewish people whose ramifications encompass the whole of history and of God's salvific plan for everybody, especially the Jews, extending all the way into the book of Revelation. When you read through the scriptures about the histories of the tribes of Israel and what they did and what happened to them and what they experienced, it lines up with what Jacob predicts in this chapter. Let's look at Genesis 49. His whole life is a preparation for what he's going to do at the end of it. And the entire history of Israel is a preparation for what they're going to do at the end of it. You just think about it. His whole life was a preparation for this prophecy. Everything else he did was getting ready for this having these sons. Everything he had to do to get these sons, what happened to him? All of it was a preparation for this climax. And the Jewish nation is the same. Everything is a preparation for this one climactic event. It probably took him 10 minutes. Imagine God preparing somebody a whole lifetime for 10 minutes of ministry. But on that 10 minutes of history of ministry hinges the entire future of prophetic history. The Jewish people be the same thing. The promise is there. The promise is for Jacob, but the blessings for Israel. At the very end, it's all going to make sense to the church and to them. Then they're going to know why. Then they're going to understand why. The first Christians were Jews, and no matter what you hear at Kensington Temple or anywhere else, the last Christians are going to be Jews. The first Christians were Jews. I don't care what the Shearman brothers say. I don't care what Rick Godwin says. I don't care what any of these false teachers say. The last Christians are going to be Jews. Not because my family is Israeli, not because my children are Jews, but because my Messiah is a Jew, and that's what he said. God is going to bless the church through Jewish people before Jesus comes. Romans 9 to 11 says that. Everything is preparing the world for that. That's the framework of looking at Revelation 7. Then Jacob summoned his sons and said, "Assemble yourselves that I may tell you what shall befall you in the days to come. Gather together and hear, O sons of Yaakov, Bnei Yaakov, and listen to Israel, your father. Reuben, you are my firstborn, my might and the beginning of my strength, preeminent in dignity and preeminent in power. Uncontrolled as water, you shall not have preeminence. The first shall be last, and the last shall be first. Because you went up to your father's bed, then you defiled it. He went up to my couch. The sins of the fathers are passed on to the sons. Only the cross can break that. You understand? Simeon and Levi are brothers. Their swords are implements of violence because of what they did when they slaughtered those people, even though their anger had a good basis to it. God is slow to anger. Let my soul not enter into their council. Let not my glory be united with their assembly, because in their anger they slew men, and in their self-esteem they lamed oxen. You see, if they were people who were simply motivated by righteous indignation, it'd be one thing. But if there's somebody with a bad temper, just looking for an excuse to get angry and do something, that's something else. All you're doing is giving them the excuse they need to go on the warpath. The great heroes of war are people who prefer peace. Cursed be their anger, for it is fierce, and their wrath, for it is cruel. I will disperse them in Jacob and scatter them in Israel. And again, the histories of these tribes are played out. Now let's look at Judah. Judah, your brothers shall praise you. Yehudah, your hand shall be on the neck of your enemies. Your father's sons shall bow down to you. Judah is a lion's whelp from the prey, my son. You've gone up. He couches, he lies down as a lion, and as a lion who dares rouse him. Now it talks here about the Lion of Judah. The scepter, the rule of authority, shall not depart from Judah, nor the ruler's staff from between his feet until Shiloh comes. And to him shall the obedience of the peoples be. He ties his fowl to the vine, and his donkey's colt to the choice vine. He washes his garments in wine, and his robes in the blood of grapes. His eyes are dull from wine, and his teeth white from milk. We'll come back to this. Zebulun shall dwell at the seashore, and he shall be a haven for ships. And that's the land that they got when the land was appropriated by Joshua. And his flank shall be toward Sidon. Issachar is a strong donkey lying down between the sheepfolds. When he saw that a resting place was good, and the land was pleasant, he bowed his shoulders to bear burdens. And he became a servant at forced labor. Dan shall judge his people. As one of the tribes of Israel, Dan shall be a serpent in the way, a horned snake in the path that bites the horse's heels, so that his rider falls backwards. For thy salvation, Yeshuatecha, I wait, O Lord. All points to Jesus. As for Gad, raiders shall raid him, but he shall raid at their heels. As for Asher, his food shall be rich, and he shall yield royal dainties. Naphtali is a doe let loose. He gives beautiful words. And Joseph is a fruitful bough. A fruitful bough by a spring, its branches run over a wall. The archers bitterly attacked him, and shot at him, and harassed him, and his bow remained firm. And his arms were agile from the hand of the mighty one of Jacob. From there is the shepherd, the stone of Israel. From the God of your fathers who helps you, and by the Almighty who blesses you, with blessings of heaven above, blessings of the deep that lies beneath, blessings of the breast of the womb. The blessings of your father have surpassed the blessings of my ancestors, up to the utmost bound of the everlasting hills. May they be on the head of Joseph, who's a type of Jesus, and on the crown of the head of the one who is distinguished among his brothers. Again, he typifies the Lord. Benjamin is a ravenous wolf. In the morning he devours his prey, and in the evening he divides the spoil. The early church saw this as somehow a prophecy about Paul, that in the morning that he would devour the prey. He'd be a ravenous wolf, the way Paul persecuted the church. But then after that, at the end, he would divide the prey. He would bring provision and blessing to God's people. All these are the 12 tribes of Israel, and this is what their father said to them when he blessed them. He blessed them, every one with the blessing appropriate to them. They play out the history of what he said. Then he charged them and said to them, I'm about to be gathered to my people. Bury me with my fathers at the cave in the field of Ephron the Hittite, in the cave that is in the field of Machpelah, where that guy took the Uzi machine gun and exterminated the Arabs, which is before Mamre in the land of Canaan, which Abraham bought along with the field from Ephron the Hittite for a burial site. And then it says, in verse 33, when Jacob finished charging his sons, he drew his feet into the bed and breathed his last and was gathered to his people. Right at the very end of his life is when he puts it all together. Everything he did, experienced, clicks at the very end, and that's it. So it will be with the Jewish people. The Holocaust, the Inquisitions, the Old Testament, the New Testament, the early church. Genesis 49 will have its ultimate fulfillment somehow in Revelation 7 and Revelation 14, but certainly Revelation 7. At the very end, it comes together. But not until every prophecy is fulfilled in Genesis 49. The most important prophecy is Judah, except for that situation with the harlot, mistaken situation. Judah was always unique and good. Judah led the tribes of Israel through the wilderness in the configuration around the ark. It was Judah who asked the brothers to have mercy on Joseph, the way Jesus asked for mercy on the Jews. They said, let his blood be on us and our children, and Jesus says, Father, forgive them. The scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor the ruler's staff from between his feet until Shiloh comes. Over and over, the Talmudic literature tells us Shiloh is the Messiah. Judaism understands it that way. Let's look at Jeremiah 22:30. Thus says the Lord, write this man down childless, a man who will not prosper in his days, for no man of his descendants will sit upon the throne of David or ruling again in Judah. King David was from which tribe? Now, in Samuel, it's promised to David, you shall not ever lack somebody to be on the throne of David. Judaism has a big problem. The British Israelites actually try to say the throne of David is the royal throne of Great Britain, and the monarchs, they actually say that. Loonies. It came when Disraeli was prime minister. They had a Jewish prime minister who was a Christian, and that's when this stuff got going, in the last century. Now, there was always some kind of Davidic line, even when interrupted during the captivity. Always. The Hasmoneans, who were the descendants of the Maccabees, tried to make the high priest the king, John Hyrcanus. But the kings were to be descendants of David, the priests descendants of Aaron. The last person who could have been, by any claim, a descendant of David, had to end by the time, or in the reign of, Herod the Great. Mother was a Moabitess. He was some kind of convert to Judaism, and he was basically a Roman, not a Jew, culturally. The scepter shall not depart from Judah until Shiloh comes. Well, the scepter did depart from Judah. Shiloh had to come. You understand? The Messiah had to come before the end of the Davidic lineage. God promised David they will always have a descendant on the throne. Is there one? No. Unless in the heavenlies, Jesus is reigning on the throne of David, as the New Testament says. So either the Messiah has come, Shiloh has come and is reigning on the throne of David, spiritually, and he will reign again in the millennia, or else the Bible is wrong, or God has broke his promise. This is one of the passages where the Talmudic literature and the rabbinic commentaries go to great lengths to get around it. They have a big problem. But we know there's a Lion of Judah, and he's on the throne of David right now. And the house of David will be restored to Jerusalem, and Jesus will reign there. We have this tape, the house of Joseph, the house of David. One Messiah, two comings. Messiah, the son of Joseph, the son of David. You can understand the background of why you must be premillennial if you understand the Jewish background. Now let's look at these tribes. Reuben in verses 3 and 4 is the firstborn of Leah, but he gets last preeminence. The favored place goes to Joseph. The priestly privilege to Levi. The kingly right to Judah. He's unstable as water, and it relates undoubtedly to his sin with Bilhah. It exactly happened. The firstborn didn't get the kingship, the favor, or the priestly lineage. The first shall be last. Simeon and Levi, second and third of Leah. They killed repented men near Shechem. They got no inheritance. The Levites had none, and Simeon was swallowed up by Judah. I will divide them in Jacob. Historically, that's what happened. They were swallowed up. It was literally and actually fulfilled just as is predicted. The problem was they killed men after the men repented. When you find Christians holding grudges and not forgiving people who have genuinely repented, that's going to hurt them more than the people they're not forgiving. If they've genuinely repented. Judah is the fourth of Leah. Judah received praise, and Yehuda has to do with that. No birthright or exceptional dignity. The kingship, the line of David, and the Messiah before the scepter departed, till Shiloh comes. There's a reference in Ezekiel 21:27. Then there's Zebulun, the sixth by Leah. Dwells by the seacoast. Jacob mentions the Sidonians in Judges 5. Later we see this being fulfilled in the Song of Deborah and the struggle against Sisera. Issachar is the fifth son of Leah, and he's a hamor, literally a donkey, a strong donkey. Strong, stubborn, but submits to the yoke. He's too lazy not to. He submitted to Canaanite invaders rather than fight. That was Issachar. Then there was Dan, the first son of Bilhah, a snake of poison causing terror. Verses 16 to 18. Then there's Gad, the first son of Zilpah, Leah's maid. You see, they weren't just Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob through their wives like Leah and Rachel. The idea was one where we have levirate marriage, or you would have Beit Birkaim, surrogate motherhood, literally on the knees. God was not simply interested in physical lineage. He was interested in faith. We're all descendants of Abraham. Then there's, God is a troop of military company, meaning mighty in war as a military company that trusts in the Lord. Asher is the second son of Zilpah. Wheat, wine, and oil. Now, it was a crazy thing, but there was a Christian businessman who was of Jewish descent from Texas who was in the oil business. And he came and he spent a fortune going to where this tribe dwelt along the coast of Israel, north of Netanya, and he spent a fortune. The Bible doesn't say nefesh. You have different words in Hebrew for oil. He thought it meant petroleum. And he spent a fortune trying to strike oil in Netanya, and now he works in a McDonald's. Poor guy. Naphtali, the second son of Bilhah, gives godly words, as we see in Judges 5:18. Those who love not their lives unto death, in this character. And then there's Joseph, the first son of Rachel, a fruitful tree. And like Ephraim means doubly fruitful. That's Ephraim. Joseph means God shall add or shall be added. He has the characteristics of Jesus, a bubbling fountain, that is a fountain of life. Verse 22, again, the living waters. Verse 24, the shepherd. Verse 25, he's helped by the Father, El Shaddai. Verse 26, he receives the crown. Verse 23, his words are like arrows. And other things associated with Jesus happen to him. Marar, in the PL, is harassed, like Jesus was in the Hebrew. Rovav is intense. Satam, deep-seated hatred. All the things that happen to Jesus are played out in Joseph. Joseph has the character of Jesus. A slave, a prisoner, exalted to a kingly position. Benjamin, again, the early church, saw this prophecy as being fulfilled in Paul. Reuben, Gad, the half-tribe of Manasseh, again, as it's hinted at, didn't cross the Jordan. They wanted God's blessing here. The tribes existed even after the 10 northern tribes went into captivity. And you look, believers come in the characteristics of those tribes. There are believers who come in the characteristics of Joseph. There's just some people have so much of Jesus, they're just models for the rest of us. And when you see Christians like that, their brothers don't like them. You know why very godly people are not very popular in the church? They're seen as wimps, which they're not. And when I see somebody who loves Jesus more than me, without him saying or doing anything, I get convicted. There's believers like Benjamin. They don't begin too good, but they end very good. There are believers like the Reubenites, the Gadites, and the half-tribe of Manasseh. They want a good, comfortable life here, now, in this world. They don't want to cross the Jordan and go to war. Not realizing they're going to have to cross the Jordan and go to war anyway, but lose the blessing that they could have had if they didn't want an easy ticket. And there's so many believers want an easy ticket. These sons of Jacob teach about us. Jacob knew his sons. He was able to predict what we would be like. Not just the Jews, but the other 12 elders. Those descended from the apostles. As in Revelation 4. Now it's interesting what happens when you put together the names of these sons in Hebrew. Interesting, Dan was left out because Dan worshipped the golden calf and acted in a judgment that was not of God. And it's made up for because of Joseph's sons having two, to make the same 12. Judge not lest you be judged. Judah, a confessor or praiser of God. Reuben, looking at the sun. God's accompany. Asher, blessed. Naphtali, striving with or wrestling with. Manasseh, forgetfulness. Simeon, hearing or obeying. Levi, clinging to or joining to. Issachar, the reward. Zebulun, the home of a dwelling place. Joseph shall be added. And Benjamin, the son of the right hand. Suppose, you see, one of the differences between Hellenistic hermeneutics and Jewish hermeneutics is that Hellenistic hermeneutics says it's this or it's that. In Jewish hermeneutics, at least biblical Jewish hermeneutics, not rabbinic, it could be both. Revelation 12 describes the character of these people. No matter what they are in terms of organization or anthropology, it describes the character and nature of these people. A company of praisers of God who are looking at the Son, they are blessed by Him, and they are striving with forgetfulness. The Jewish people have forgotten the covenant. They are hearing and obeying Shimeon, clinging to the promised reward of an eternal home that shall be added to them by the Son of God's own right hand. Somehow it describes the character of this 144,000. The Hebrew names describe their character as a corporate unit. Now, all kinds of books will tell you this, that, and the other thing. I'm not telling you anything beyond what I told you today. The key is in Genesis 49. Seal these things up to the time of the end, says in Daniel. At the appropriate time, the Holy Spirit will show exactly what these things mean. But so far, I know what the Holy Spirit is saying. Look at Jacob. Look at Genesis 49. Forget about the Christian commentaries. Let's go back to Genesis. What does it say in the Tanakh? God declares the end from the beginning in Isaiah 46:10. Look at Isaiah 46:10. Yeshayahu Hanavi. Declaring the end from the beginning, and from ancient times, things which have not been. Do you see that? From ancient times, He declares things that aren't yet. He declares the end from the beginning. Think of the Bible as a loaf of bread that's not been cut. It looks the same on both ends, doesn't it? Genesis and Revelation go together. You got the 12 sons of Jacob, the 12 tribes in Genesis 49. What do you have in Revelation 7? The blood of Abel cries out for justice. The blood of the martyrs cries out in Revelation for justice. The woman with the stars, Joseph's vision, the prized son of Joseph, what do you see in Revelation 12? The serpent, what do you see in Revelation? The serpent. He declares the end from the beginning. In other words, we have a tape on the creation and new creation, the relationship between Genesis, Proverbs 8, John, and Revelation. The creation and the new creation mutually illuminate each other between John and Revelation. John and Genesis. So does the creation and the recreation. The gospel is new creation. Genesis is creation, but Revelation is recreation. The key is in Genesis. The whole Bible is in the book of Genesis. All of it. The entire history of the Jews and the history of the church is tied up in Genesis 49 in some way. He declares the end from the beginning. That's the key. It depends on this one guy, Jacob. Of all the great people in the world, of all the great men of the Bible, why does God take a schemer, a con artist, a manipulator, a shrewdy, and hinge His entire plan for the salvation of the world and for the history of the world on this one guy? Why, of all the fine people in this country, who were born in this country, who could be standing up here giving a much better performance than I can, does God pick up a drug addict from the streets of New York and bring him to England? Who can answer those questions? I can't answer those questions. The only way I can even begin to understand it is, losers have nothing to brag about except God's grace. And the Jews as a nation and a people are a nation of losers. They've lost everything but one thing. They lost the promise of God. That's the one thing they haven't lost. His promise. They've lost their children. Read Elie Wiesel. They've lost their hope. Go to Israel. Zionism was their dream. Today, people, they leave Israel if they can get a visa to go to the States or something. Most of them would leave. The Russians go there because they can't get a visa to go to the States or Canada, and that's why they go there. They leave tomorrow. Everything the Jews try turns to garbage. In Germany, the 19th century center of culture and science was Germany. But who was it? It was German Jews. For better or worse, Karl Marx was a German Jew. Sigmund Freud was a German Jew. The scientist Steinmetz was a German Jew. They were not simply Jews. Einstein was not simply a Jew. He was a German Jew. They thought they had it made. We're the intellectuals. We're making the mold of modern science. Everybody's following our ideas. In science and in philosophy, political philosophy, economic philosophy, we're making the mold. Psychotherapy. It turns against them. They lost everything straight down the tubes, didn't they? Hitler comes along and said, he actually said this, there's only two kinds of superior races, Jews or Germans. We're going to find out who's going to come out on top. The Jews lost everything in the Holocaust. So they go to Israel. Now they're going to lose that? They're losing the land. They lost their hope. They lost their idealism. The Antichrist will enter that country and be proclaimed as Messiah, misled by their own rabbis. They lose everything except the promise of God. God's redemptive plan for the salvation of the world and for the future of the church is bound up with His prophetic and redemptive plan for the salvation of Israel. Why would He choose a nation like that, a little nation? What do they have to brag about? Maybe that's why. There's a reason. They're so little. Even in the days of David and Solomon, they were never a great power. They were only a regional power. They were never a great world power like Rome or Babylon or Persia. Never. Never. They will be in the millennia. Intellectuals? Jews weren't intellectuals. The Greeks were the intellectuals of the ancient world. They were nothing compared to the great powers. Yet, God takes the insignificant things, and that's what He uses. What happens to the Jews happens to us. Heads and tails, the church in Israel. You can distinguish between heads and tails, but you can't separate them. What does it say in 1 Corinthians? Consider your calling, my brethren, that not many of you were sophisticated people in the world. God didn't choose the Jews because they were the greatest of nations. He chose them because they were the least. And He didn't choose us because we were the greatest of people. He chose us because I was a drug addict in New York. I didn't have anything. I had nothing. Most of my friends are dead from dope. That's it. Genesis 49. God's whole working in Jacob's life pointed to this one chapter, and then He ends it. Genesis 49. Revelation 7. It's going to happen. That prophecy will be fulfilled. A time is going to come in some way when His purpose for the Jews to be lights to the nations is going to happen. Ben-Gurion said the Jews must be lights to the nations. We have to have a model of socialism in our economy and in our government that the Gentiles will want to imitate. Who wants to imitate Israel's economy? You like 3-digit inflation? But a time is going to come when there will be lights to the nations, when they have the light of their Messiah. They lost it all except the promise. The promise. The promise of the fathers. If God can break His promise to Jacob, give me one good reason He has to keep His promise to the church. Before Jesus comes, the sons of Jacob are going to proclaim Jesus to the nations. Before Jesus comes, the church is going to be in very serious trouble. God is going to revive it. You know who's going to revive it? If their rejection be the reconciliation of the world, what will their reconciliation be but life from the dead? For who? For the church. I don't know what to make out of it, but I'm telling you, Genesis 49 has always been fulfilled, but Genesis 49 is going to be fulfilled. The Jews have lost everything, but they've not lost the promise of God. Let's have a break.